Two. Hey guys, how's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez, coming out with CEO Janine Yorio of Everyrealm. And Janine is the largest owner of land in Sandbox, but you do have land in other places as well. Can you say what other places you have, like Earth 2, Decentraland, stuff like that?
Sure. Hey, great to be here, Randy. I think today we're actually one of the largest landholders in the Sandbox. I think we've been unseated by somebody else who acquired more, or a group that acquired more. But we have Metaverse real estate holdings across 27 different Metaverse platforms. Our largest holdings are in the Sandbox, but we're also very exposed to Decentraland. I believe we're the largest landowners in a metaverse called Treeverse. We've done a lot of developments across different metaverse platforms in Portals, in Mona. We're working on projects in Spatial. So we have a broad, diversified portfolio, but also experience developing inside those platforms on the metaverse real estate that we own.
I just started getting into Spatial. There's a couple of people that have a bunch of NFTs from everywhere in there. It looks really cool. One of the things that I wanted to kind of pick your brain on is the interoperability between all of these different metaverses. Which ones do you think will become interoperable and be cooperative and have portals from one to the other? And which ones do you think are not going to do that and going to try to have a closed off system?
I'm not aware of any metaverses that have stated that they intend to remain closed forever. Interoperability is certainly the goal that the entire industry is working toward. There are obviously issues about chain compatibility. Different metaverses are being built on different chains. The NFTs, which is really the aspect that people are concerned about the interoperability of, are not always on the same chain. But everybody in the industry, in my experience, seems very committed to creating open ecosystems. And that's the response to the Roblox, Minecraft closed ecosystems that we're all much more familiar with. So while they're not necessarily all interoperable today, I believe that within 18 to 24 months, there will be a lot of interoperability. And as an industry, we will have collectively figured out how to create portals between the universes. There's this overarching desire on the part of the industry to create this kind of multiverse, which is a series of different experiences built by different teams that are accessible and interconnected, where NFTs are the assets that you can bring along with you, whether it's your avatar or their wearables or their in-game assets like weapons or vehicles. And that is where this industry is headed to. The good news is everything is fairly early. People are building. There's a lot of enthusiasm. There's so much white space that there's also a lot of collaboration. And so everybody's really trying to pretty much band together to make the sum of the parts much greater than just each individual piece could be on its own.
Agreed. Have you seen Ready Player One?
Of course.
So a lot of things that I talked about with previous guests, one being Jeremiah Aoyang, who's a big investor of Animoca Brands, has land in Sandbox as well. One of his concerns is trying to pick the right one, on which one to bet the most on. And he thinks brand recognition, which I think as well is going to be one of the best ones. How do you decide which ones to invest in the most right now, considering most of the IP that would be taken to build Ready Player One is with veve and not really a part of a metaverse yet?
I think that, first of all, this question is at the crux of why we've built Everyrealm to take the strategy that we have. I mean, our name is Everyrealm, and we're aiming to be an infrastructure layer atop the entire metaverse ecosystem, which I see as a constantly evolving group of platforms. And some might be extremely popular one year and fade a bit in popularity the next year, just like in any video game, where you have years where there's a hit that comes out of seemingly nowhere, like Among Us, that becomes meteoric in popularity, and then people start declining, the user base starts declining, and then you have Valorant. So I think that sort of evolving landscape of the spaces where people elect to spend their time is going to be a constant in this industry. And being on top of all of the platforms as opposed to primarily exposed to any one is probably the most conservative strategy going forward. I'm not sure that I think brand recognition is going to be the deciding factor. if we look back in history at metaverses and at video games, which are, sort of very related when we have the conversation about metaverse, Second Life and InView are metaverses that have been around for a while, both of them for over a decade. And Second Life, when they started, made a big play to be the brand, the metaverse that was built to accommodate brands. And it didn't really change the trajectory of their growth, because it sounds great on paper. But if you think about why users spend time in the metaverse, why are they there? They're there to procrastinate. They're there to have fun. They're there to meet people. Almost none of those things are really about product discovery or being marketed to, which is what brands want to have happen. And I think we always have to remember that the users are there to have fun, and priority should be on how much fun the experience is and how pure the gameplay is and how much it's going to make people want to come back to keep having fun. And the more it feels like a series of advertisements or corporate shills, the more that's going to impede what makes the environment fun, which is great gameplay. Yeah. So I do think there's a contraindication between building for brands and what they want and building for users and what they want. And the metaverse that get those two things in balance, they might have a competitive advantage. But quite frankly, if I had to bet on the outcome, I would always bet on the platform that's focused almost myopically on user experience and making sure that the gameplay is really, really fun. I'm assuming you're a gamer. And as
I have a lot of gaming, yes.
Okay, I didn't even see the arm. Gamers are very discerning, right? They are very stingy with their time, and they are quick to leave a game that doesn't satisfy their expectations. Even if to an outside observer, it looks a lot like another game, they'll play it for a few weeks, they get bored of it, and they move on. And that is the psychology of the prototypical metaverse user that we're building for. And the platforms that understand that and understand how to build to that kind of almost ADD are the ones that are going to succeed. And those goals may be incompatible with what brands want. I don't know. We haven't seen it yet, but that's the philosophy that's kind of informing how we choose to spend our time when it comes to developing on platforms and understanding their technology and also investing.
Yes, agreed. There's a couple things I want to break down about that. A lot of, was that like your money had gone into that? You had done a $60 million funding round with Andreessen Horowitz earlier this year. Mm-hmm. How much of that went into land and how much of that went into the crypto associated with that land, like Sand for Sandbox or Mana for Decentraland or buying place in Earth 2 to get Essence, that type of deal?
None of that capital went into investing. We actually manage third-party capital over and above that capital. That $60 million is used to build our business. The fund management business or the investment management business is one vertical that we participate in, and we raised outside third-party capital to make those investments into land.
Oh, wow, that's great. So one of the other things that I don't know how long ago this was, but you have a string of successful companies. One of your last ones, I think, was bought by Ken Gwynn of Republic. And this one that you're doing now, do you have plans for another funding raise, seed funding round for you guys, like to get more devs or to get more things, or are you guys good for a while now?
That's a tough question. As a startup, we're always opportunistic when it comes to capital markets, and we're very well capitalized right now, which I feel like is a privilege. But I also think there are going to be some really interesting opportunities. In fact, we're already seeing them as a result of the crypto and tech market corrections. And I want to be opportunistic when it comes to making strategic acquisitions and combining with other companies who aren't in that same financial position in order to grow not just one hire at a time, but actually by growing by merging or acquiring other companies. And those activities require an even bigger balance sheet than the one we have now.
I love that idea, buying up the smaller companies. There's what with merging and buying, there's other things like Disney just announced that they did a accelerator program with Polygon, Flickr, like a couple of different companies. Is that something that you guys might do as well? Like, hey, you guys are super, super early startup. Let's give you like 100,000, a couple 100,000, and then have access to that IP or whatever they want, or is it just buying it all or nothing?
So we do have a traditional VC fund where we invest in seed and Series A. It's less about we invest and then get the rights to that IP, and more of a traditional VC model where we write a check and try to be helpful in as much as we can, but we don't make excessive demands on that company to share their IP with us. I do try to find companies that I find to be particularly interesting. And those are opportunities where I would look to do something directly off our balance sheet instead of through one of the funds, because I think that what that team is building is uniquely compatible with our visions for Everyrealm. So I guess to answer your question, a bit of both. We do both straight up passive traditional VC investing, but also are looking to be very creative about how we seed companies and teams that we like, that we think are building things that are much needed in the industry. Given our situation that we're in the middle of this industry, we're both investing and building, we see the entire competitive landscape, and I think therefore have a really unique vantage point. We can see what's missing, we can see what's needed, we can see what companies are struggling with, and that gives us a lot of insights about how to spend our time and how to try to find companies that are solving those problems.
So this does seem like at least a mid, but most likely long-term project. I had the pleasure of meeting Julia Schwartz and then your husband Jesse over at that Uncharted meeting a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Great guys, by the way. Tell them I said hey. And he had actually left his job, making this amount of money to go work with you side by side, hand in hand. And I don't think he would have done that if this was like a short-term thing. But in that same aspect, you are getting the attention of much, much larger companies. Have you guys had any offers for buyouts? And is that something, even if you might not consider now, that you might consider 5-10 years down the road?
Well, we've definitely been approached by SPACs, as have every company, I think, that has humans with a pulse in it. So I guess that's one sort of answer to your question. For sure, we're a venture-backed company, so we always have to take acquisition and exit opportunities seriously. I honestly, though, don't think this is a company that will be looking to exit for at least 5 years. I think there's some really interesting strategic combinations, though, that we're likely to work through. There are some larger traditional companies that have been around for a long time trying to figure out a lot of the things that we've already figured out. So I see it as, if I had to predict the future, we probably end up having a fairly sizable strategic partnership with kind of an old line company. And then maybe in 5 to 10 years, that company ends up acquiring us, or we become a subsidiary that then becomes a standalone public company.
Okay, that would make sense. And for a lot of stuff, that the money that you guys either raise or part in their funds, I know a lot goes to land. How much go into NFTs?
So we have a dedicated NFT investment vehicle. I believe it has somewhere between $7 and $10 million allocated to it today. I think about half of that has been deployed, which is interesting because we're able to invest now that prices have fallen, which is always a better situation to be in than. It's not to say we didn't also buy some projects at their peak, and the investors who invested in that pool of capital were looking for exposure to NFTs. I mean, they didn't intend to have it sit in cash. And part of being a professional investor is giving your investors what they want, which is exposure to the category. Obviously, it's helpful if you can get in at the right time and buy low and sell high, but humans are notoriously terrible at predicting the market. And what is very obvious in hindsight is not always easy to figure out at the time. So we are pretty heavily weighted towards some of the blue chip projects, some of which we bought at the peak, and then we've doubled down on others that we feel particularly optimistic about and bought now that prices and the underlying crypto prices like Ethereum have also retreated. And the net effect has been that the prices are way off the peak on some of those projects that we're really excited about long term. So we do have a dedicated pool of capital. Again, it's outside third-party LP money that we invest in NFT projects with. And it's just full disclaimer, it's highly risky, highly volatile, very speculative, and really only suitable for investors who are extremely comfortable with that kind of risk profile.
Agreed, Sam. Is any of that public? Like, yeah, we have like a Bored Ape and a World of Women and a Moonbirds, or is it right now we're keeping it on the hush hush?
I believe our wallet address is something that we share fairly readily, and I don't actually know the answer to that question. I know we're not overly guarded about it. I don't think there's a link from our website, for example, but we do have all of those things. We have some punks and some apes and some moonbirds and I believe a goblin and certainly a doodle. All the usual suspects. In addition to some up and coming projects we're really excited about, we have a chromie squiggle, we have a fidenza. We have kind of what I would call the canon of NFT projects and the ones that we believe are most likely to endure through various different market cycles, where we think the team and the community surrounding them are all creative and thinking about ways to create utility and create long-term value for the holders of those projects.
Outside of what Jesse and Julia had told you, have you heard of veve before then?
It's a loaded question. I don't know. Have
So veve is an NFT platform that has partners with like Disney and Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Cartoon Network, and all that. And a lot of big bets and a lot of the people that I advise, I tell them to go on there, even if for whatever reason they don't like the team, which I love the team, but even if they didn't, the first Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman on the blockchain are probably gonna outlast a Bored Ape or something like that, something that doesn't really have a big IP, and that could be wrong, but just in my particular opinion, that's a decent amount of my net worth did go into veve NFTs, but full disclosure, I did sell them for the OMI token that they have. Right, and oh, okay. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Your mic isn't connected. It's 1 second.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me. I can't hear you all of a sudden.
Oh,
hold on. Let me see.
I can try to go in another way.
I'm gonna dial. I'm just gonna refresh. I hope that doesn't mess up everything. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. All right, we shall hear from her in a little bit. Oop.
Talk.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. It must have just been a broadband glitch.
Okay.
Yeah, it said my mic, but I don't have a mic and I didn't touch anything, so I don't know what changed exactly.
Oh, okay. But veve is like I said, they have partnerships with everyone from Disney, and I tell a lot of people that I advise that if you want to get into NFTs, the first Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman on the blockchain are probably going to do really well. And there's a large amount of money coming into them. So I was just wondering if you guys had dipped your toes into that yet, or just kind of waiting for the bull market and see what happens.
I am not the person that manages our NFT portfolio, and I'm not necessarily the most NFT speculative on our team. So I don't have the answer to that for you. I could circle back up with other teammates of mine that are much deeper into the NFT space. Look, NFTs are related to Metaverse for sure, and we're obviously a part of that ecosystem, but our primary focus is on building out the Metaverse, meaning that interactive, immersive, social video game environment. And part of that is NFTs as both currency and assets inside that economy. And that's really our primary focus as a company is unifying all of those themes and creating an ecosystem and helping to encourage mainstream adoption and more development into the Metaverse sector so that it becomes more real. And NFTs are adjacent to that, but they're not our primary focus. And therefore it's not a topic I'm as familiar with. I do like the idea of blue chip IP NFTs. I'm not sure I agree with your thesis that Spider-Man will outperform Bored Apes. I actually don't think anybody really knows. And I think Bored Apes might end up being the Spider-Man of the 21st century. So I think there's some Spider-Man was invented, I think, in the 1920s, and he's had a great run, and he's obviously going to persist because there are a lot of people putting a lot of money behind that IP. I wouldn't bet against him, but there's always room for new, exciting IP that younger generations resonate with. And obviously, Bored Apes are resonating. They've done something that's really captured popular imagination. Now, admittedly, they're only 10,000 holders, so it's not as pervasive yet as Spider-Man or the NBA. But there's something there that's very transformative, and it's really making every brand and certainly every IP provider like Disney and Marvel think about what the next set of heroes and icons are going to look like and where they're going to come from. So there's some really interesting things happening as a result of this new creator-led economy and this new dynamic of direct to the creator that's enabled by crypto and NFTs and royalties and all the things that for the last century we hadn't really been able to figure out an elegant solution to. So I think there's room for both. I think Spider-Man's going to be here in 100 years, but I think there's a chance the apes might be there too.
Yeah, very possible. There's so much that, like I said, is happening now that like nobody heard of World of Women years ago or Moonbirds, and now that a lot of these are really popular brands, and there's so much people that aren't in the space yet. Like Disney filed for their metaverse and CVS filed for their metaverse. What are some companies that haven't filed for their metaverse yet that you're really hoping come soon?
I mean, I don't track that maybe as much as I ought to. I think some of the most exciting metaverses that I'm aware of are the ones being built by AAA gaming studios and teams that come out of AAA gaming studios. Because again, my thesis, you've heard me kind of hound on it here, is that it's about gameplay and it's all about the and your game experience. And gaming is a pretty mature industry, right? Been around since 70.
You're breaking up a little bit the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix that. It's probably our Wi-Fi. I think there are companies that are very well versed in creating game mechanics and gaming environments that are very addictive, and those are the teams that are best equipped to create metaverses that really gain mainstream adoption with hundreds of millions of users and not the thousands or millions of users that we're seeing in some of the existing ones today.
Agreed. And how long did I have you for? Did I have you until 10 or did I have you a little after?
10.
Okay, guys. So we'll end it there for today. I'll talk to you off camera for a little bit. I have one last thing that you would like to say to everyone that, kind of a message, or did we cover most of it?
I think we covered most of it.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you, Janine. I guess we did. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This is really good. And everyone, thank you for joining. And like I said, I'll talk to you for a little bit.